Welcome to City of Keene in Focus. Thanks so much for listening. Hello and welcome to our next episode of City of Keene in Focus. My name is Asa Kramer and I am joined by Elizabeth Furland, our city manager. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Asa.
How you doing today?
Good, good. Long meeting last night.
Night.
We just had a lot of items on the agenda, and I think just getting through all of that took a lot of time.
Yeah.
You know, we started out the evening with a retirement resolution, which is always fun, and not everybody agrees to come in for these, so I was really happy that Chris Simons came in last night with his family. It was great, and the mayor read his proclamation. And I was just talking to him briefly before the start of the meeting, and I was giving him a hard time about all of his facial hair, because, you can't have that when you're in the police department. But he worked for the city for 20 years, and now he's retired, and I said, what are you doing? I'm always interested, are you doing something else now?
Yeah, what's next?
So he's working in Swansea in the Public Works Department.
Really?
Yeah, and so he used to work for us in the Public Works Department. That's actually how he started his career here before he moved over to the police department. And I thought about that for a minute. I'm like, why are you working in Swansea? We have a Public Works Department. But the state of New Hampshire retirement system is the problem. Yeah, so in New Hampshire, when you retire from the state of New Hampshire retirement system, you're limited on the number of hours you can work for another municipality that's part of the system. Swansea is not part of the New Hampshire retirement system.
Really?
Yeah.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, and so they would have had to join a long time ago. I don't know, maybe it was back in the 70s when this was first created, and they did not. So their employees contribute to some other savings plan, probably like a 401k, I'm not exactly sure. But because they're not part of the retirement system, our retired employees can go work.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Not fair. Chris Simons, he was really instrumental in the implementation of the body-worn camera system and the in-car videos system. That was a lot of work a few years ago, and, testing all of that and bringing forward recommendations and looking at how it would be incorporated into the police department, what we would need to do in terms of redacting and all of that. It was quite a process, and he did a great job. And so we will miss him, but he is not far. He's over the line in Swansea working for Public Works. Just another reason why we need to make some changes at the state level for our retirement system. I understand why they have that rule in place, because they don't want people to be in these full-time jobs, retire, and then just say, oh, I'm now retired and working part-time but doing the same job and no longer contributing to the system. But because they've really limited the amount of hours that retirees can work for us, then go work for anybody else. But they can't work for municipalities in the system. It limits the ability to be able to bring these employees back in some other capacity. So we lost out on this one, but it was nice to see him last night and his family, and I hope that he enjoys his time in Swansea and no longer has to do night shifts and all the things that come along with being a police officer.
And it was really nice, too. There were several other officers in the room to celebrate his career and to celebrate his retirement, so that was really sweet.
Yeah, and last night was also the Crystal Nook ceremony at the Colonial, so we had employees over there. Both our police and fire chief attended that ceremony, and I know Andy Bohannon also attended that ceremony, so it was nice to see everyone else here in the audience to really support him and recognize his service to the community. After that, we had a hearing. It was a pretty quick hearing, and this was on rules related to cross-site access, basically accessing different parts of a commercial development without going into the public right-of-way, so basically driving through the parking lot. You see that all the time now, so I was actually confused about that the first time I drove through some of these parking lots. So if you look at the Kohl's parking lot, for example, you can drive through, but there is also a public access. But if you look at some of our other lots, you really have to kind of meander your way through the lot to then get back onto the right-of-way. So this does provide, assuming this gets approved, and last night was the hearing, so it's going to go to PLD next, but if this gets approved, it does provide some flexibility for these developments, and it really helps to limit the amount of roads we have to create. So there was no one there last night. night opposed to it. No one spoke in favor of it either. So I think this will be fairly simple when it gets to PLD, but we'll see. And then last night, I think one of the items on the agenda that has gotten the most conversation recently was the sale of 100 Church Street. And last night, the council voted after 3 times visiting committee meetings for recommendations.
It really has
they
gone
did
back
vote
and forth.
it. Yes,
Yeah.
it has. It went to FOP and then MSFI twice. Last night they did vote to approve the recommendation that came out of committee, which was basically in essence to keep the property. So several councils talked about this last night. This is sort of a chance, right? And a chance to see if we can come up with a plan with the neighbors and the other volunteers in the neighborhood that really have an interest in doing something with this space. It's a very, very small piece of property that's owned by the city. And really the message that was given to me by the council was we're not going to make any permanent changes, like change ordinances and things of that nature to make it a park until we know that we're going to be able to address some of the safety concerns at this location. And so I plan to try to help organize a meeting of the volunteers and with Kara Fisk-Hennessy, our Parks and Rec director, and Don Lucier, because they both really have a role to play. Even though it's not a park, there are some rules and some signs that we could post, things that we could do, and then really try to provide some guidance to the volunteers. They have lots of great ideas, and see if we can stage the effort a little bit and see if we can help get things organized.
Great.
But then it will really be up to all of them as to what actually happens, and then the council wants a report back in a few months. Now, we're going into the winter, so I would say we should give this some time. Really, we should go into the spring at least, because as we go through the winter, naturally we'll probably see less activity at this site. And there won't be a lot of opportunity for us to do some of the things that the neighbors wanted to do. They can activate the space, but it will be a little bit more challenging, I think, as snow begins to fly.
Sure.
Yeah. So we can have those conversations and work with the volunteers. And speaking of volunteers, one of the things that we've been talking about is, we have a lot of people who want to help. And if you think about Green Up Keene, it's a huge effort. The number of people that come out to pick up litter and trash, it's just amazing.
Oh,
and
it's incredible.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And it makes a difference. It helps the city keep our community beautiful and clean. Rebecca Landry, Andy Bohannon, and I met with Councilor Laura Tobin recently to talk about just volunteers in general and how we manage them. And so right now, if someone wants to volunteer, it's typically through the Parks and Rec department. There's a group that works at Ashwat River Park, and there's an agreement between that group and the city as to what they want to do and how they are going to help us. And it's formalized, but we really need to have a place to have more opportunities and take advantage. And recently we were talking a little bit about volunteerism as it relates to emergencies as well in the city, and how we can tap into all the skills that people have and really utilize volunteers to help us get through whatever the emergency might be. So we're looking at creating a new landing page on the website and a new form, a fillable form on the website, and trying to really reinvigorate volunteerism. I'm hoping that that will make it a little bit clearer and easier for people to volunteer in ways that they would like to for their community.
That's a great idea. I love that. That's something I really, really admire about Keene as a whole. It's a very civically engaged community. It's a very community-minded city. So I think there will be a lot of interest in that. And I think that's a great idea to get that out on the website, make those opportunities available to people. So cool.
Yeah, and the challenge has always been having a staff person that has the capacity to manage volunteers. So really, we're trying to find a way to simplify that, to have these agreements, to make it clear that these are the things you can do and this is how we can help you. And wouldn't it be great if we had a Green Up Keene all year and we provided the bags and picked up the trash? I think that there are lots of opportunities. So more to come.
Cool.
Last night, we also did talk about the downtown infrastructure project. So there was an information informational update. Every month there's an informational update from the Public Works Director, and that was accepted as informational last night by the full City Council. But I also let them know some exciting news. The downtown infrastructure project is out to bid.
Yay!
I know. Exactly. Yeah, we're very happy about that. There was a few hurdles that we had to get over with New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, and those hurdles come when you take money. So we have a significant amount of money coming through New Hampshire DES. It's close to $2 million, and so there are additional strings that are attached to that. But we were able to work with them, and they allowed us to go ahead and move forward. So they had some comments that we were able to resolve by Wednesday, and the project was advertised for bid yesterday. It's on our purchasing platform. Anyone can go on our website, go to purchasing, and check it out. The bids are due on December 18th, and we intend to have a contract awarded before year end. So that was great news. I know that the council was really pleased with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's such good news.
Last night, we had our usual approval of grant funding and contracts. We had a lot of engineering contracts come out of Public Works last night that were approved, and those things really didn't take a lot of time to go through. In managers' updates, I talked about the 3 million gallon tank. We've had a project on Roxbury Road. We have a very large water tank that has been rehabbed. That project is really just about done and ready to go back into service. We are running some additional tests, but we do think next week that it'll be back up and running, which is great. I know we did have an issue on Tuesday of this week. We did notify customers in East Keene that they may observe elevated chlorine in their water. Either they could smell it or taste it. And this was a result of a valve that's used to isolate the tank leaking and allowed a small amount of water used in the disinfection to enter distribution system. So basically some chlorine. But staff was able to quickly flush it, and we hadn't received any calls or complaints from customers. So I hope that that issue's been resolved, and then next week that tank will be back up and holding water for us. And
Great.
yeah, it's really an important tank as part of the water supply for the city. I also last night talked about the Asheville Rail Trail Trestle Bridge. So this is a bridge on our pathways that's used primarily as a connector through the campus, and this bridge had deteriorated over the last several years and was beginning to become a safety issue. And so Andy Bohannon worked with our Parks and Rec department to apply for what's called an RTP grant. So that's a recreational trails program grant that's available through New Hampshire Fish and Game. We were awarded that grant this week, so I was happy to share that information.
Great.
Yeah, $80,000 that will help us address the issues at this site. And the other thing is we've been working with Keene State College and Pathways to try to prioritize this repair. They had supported our grant application, and we are working on the matching funds with those organizations as well. This is an 80-20 grant, so 80% funded by the grant, 20% as a match. And so we'll continue to work with them on that, but we will be happy to, in the spring, get this bridge fixed.
I'm sure a lot of the college students will be very happy about that.
Yeah, Councilor Favalise is actually the one that really brought this to our attention. He was getting some complaints about the condition of the bridge. We met with the college and talked about, how we were going to be able to do this, because it wasn't something that we had in our budget right now. And I give a lot of credit to Andy Bohannon for being creative and looking for funding sources and, moving forward with the grant application so that we can do this work.
That's something that Andy is just excellent at, is pursuing and applying for and getting grants. Like, he is a rock star at that.
I know. He really is. And I think Kara Fitzkennesy is picking up where he left off in Parks and Rec. She's been doing a lot of hard work as well, getting donations for the work that they're doing at Goose Pond. So, yeah, staff, they really do a great job at finding ways to fund things without using the budget or minimizing the use of the budget, like this project. And so, yeah, we were really happy to share that information. Last night, I also just let the council know that last week, our airport director retired, so we knew it was coming, but last week was his last day as our airport director, so Dave Hickling retired. He has moved back to New York, where he had originally come from, and he has family down there, and he's really happy about retiring. And, we always have a gathering of the department heads when someone is leaving, and he said something that really touched me at that gathering. He said that he was really happy he ended his career here at the City of Keene because it was the best place that he'd worked ever.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was
awesome.
awesome. He just talked about the way that we support each other and the work that we do. I love hearing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, big congratulations to him, and we'll miss him, but we're happy for him
Yeah.
too.
I came to the city in 2017. We've had a few different airport directors during that time. In between those periods, Rebecca Landry has served as the airport director, technically, because with the FAA and the state DOT, we have to have someone named as an airport director at all times. And so she has filled that role at least twice, if not 3 times, and she's filling it for us again. So we actually had a meeting this morning with our engineering company for the airport, all the projects that we have. We need to align those projects with FAA funding. That's trickier than you would think. So their fiscal year is different than our fiscal year, and certain things are eligible for certain funding sources, but we get the majority of our money for projects at the airport from FAA. 90% directly from FAA, 5% of a project from the state FAA division, and then the city funds the other 5%. So it's really important that we are aligned with those funding sources. So this morning we met with the engineering firm, went over the projects that we have going on at the airport, and then we're going to have another meeting just to make sure that our capital plan is aligned with the funding sources. So thank you, Rebecca, for agreeing once again to fill this role for us. And thank you to Dave for the work that he did. He did a lot of really great things at the airport, and he brought a calming presence. He has a great demeanor and worked well with people. I think that was something that we really needed. And the last 5 years, he was able to get a lot of work done, and we really appreciate that. And over the next few weeks, we have 2 candidates coming in for interviews for the airport director position. And while we go through this process, we can call on Dave for assistance. So we have him under a limited contract, probably just through December. So keep your fingers crossed that our airport director candidates are superstars when they come. All right, there was one other topic that did get a lot of attention, has got a lot of attention for a while, and that is the rules of operation for the protected bike lanes. So first of all, there was conversation about what is the protected bike lane that we're talking about? Are these rules applicable to what's called sharrows in the road? If you see that we have those green painted blocks, those are called sharrows. And no, these rules do not apply to that. There are rules of the road that the state has for bicyclists. These rules that the council did ultimately adopt last night are related to what's being created as part of the downtown infrastructure project. And so they are the bike lanes that will be up on the sidewalk level. They are not part of the sidewalk. They are at the sidewalk level. I think that's an important distinction. There is separation between these bike lanes and the sidewalk. The council had been struggling with a couple of things. One, what's the correct speed limit? Now, enforcing a speed limit on a bike lane is difficult, if not impossible, to do. But what they wanted to do was at least set a standard so that if there is someone behaving badly, that they have something to go back to and use. And so last night, Councilor Greenwald put forward an amendment to the report to change what they had in the ordinance, which was 10 miles per hour, to 8 miles per hour. He said he had gotten a lot of feedback during the elections, talking to people. He felt that just having it at 8 and making sure it's not a double-digit number, that it might stick out a little bit more. And I think other councilors thought that that was a good idea. So that was the one change. They changed it to an 8 miles per hour in this downtown core zoning district, which is the new bike lanes that are being created. In the ordinance, it also talks about having an electric motor. So there are multiple things that can have an electric motor, but really where this started was e-bikes that have electric motors, and a concern that they would be going really fast through the downtown on these lanes and that could create some conflict with people who are parking and crossing over to get to the sidewalk. So there was a lot of talk about that. What they decided to do, there are people that wanted to make sure if you had an e-bike, you were still able to use these lanes, because there are people that use e-bikes for transportation. And we are trying to encourage people to get out of cars and onto bikes and walk whenever possible. So the compromise that they came up with is, in the ordinance, it says any device with an electric motor may not engage the electric motor within the downtown core zoning district. So this again is applying to these bike lanes and only to these bike lanes. And so the debate was, well, how do we know if someone's using their electric motor? And probably we won't. These e-bikes and other things like scooters, they all operate a little bit differently, and it would be difficult to tell. But again, they're trying to set an expectation for use. So that was a compromise that they came up with. The other thing in the ordinance is a rule against stopping and parking bicycles or other motorized vehicles or non-motorized vehicles in the lane. So if you go to other places, you will see, a lot of those rent-a-bikes, and they just drop them, and go about their business. It's crazy,
It's
right?
crazy.
So that's one of the things they wanted to prevent. Someone just leaving it, parking it in the bike lane, and then going into the store and coming back. But they want people to put them in the appropriate place, and having different places for people to put their bikes throughout the downtown will be important. And so this ordinance prohibits them from leaving it. It specifically states, no person shall stop, park, or load any bicycle or other vehicle in such a way as to obstruct the public use of the bike lanes and the multi-use paths. So that makes sense. And right now we don't have a business that's doing these temporary renting. And I don't see that there's a huge demand for that here based on our population. But people who have these e-bikes and other scooters and such, making sure that they're putting them in the appropriate place makes sense. And so also in the ordinance, it just talks about shall not be parked or left unattended within the public right-of-way except at a rack provided for such a purpose. This ordinance got a lot of conversation again last night, and in the end, it was approved with the amendment from 10 miles per hour to 8 miles per hour. It was a close vote, but it was approved. And then the conversation about what we're doing next is education. So we really needed a set of rules adopted by the council before we could engage in an education campaign. That will be coming before these lanes are built and in operation. We'll be doing a lot of reaching out to people and organizations and groups to say what the rules are and what's expected for people who are using these bike lanes. So I'm glad to have that one done.
Yes, that's a big one.
Yeah, that was a big one. And I think they did a good job at trying to strike a balance and being realistic about enforcement, but still saying we should have some expectation. So I think that was it for last night. It was a lot, but those were really the highlights.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about that's on your desk?
So what the council is about to do now, we have 3 new city councilors coming on board in January. So they were elected. Last night they did the canvassing of the vote, which is basically just an official recognition of the vote. And then in January, the new members get appointed. Between now and then, there's some work that's being done on the city council goals, which are adopted every 2 years. So there's 2 workshops coming up, one in November, one in December. What we will be doing is taking a look at the current council goals and how they align with the recently adopted master plan. The first workshop will be talking about the progress that we've made related to these goals. And then the second workshop will be a conversation about how the council would like to amend the goals or add or change the goals so that we have them established for the next 2 years. And I think it's important to do this now because it takes a long time to get sort of up to speed on the projects. And this council has been working on these projects for the last 2 years. And so making this update now, moving into the capital planning process makes a whole lot of sense because the capital plan is where our big projects are planned for the future. And they really should be aligned with both the city council goals and the master plan. So the council will be reviewing the capital plan in January. So looking at these goals, adopting any revisions they want to make, and then aligning that with the capital plan that they will adopt in January. And I think that's enough, right? Because that's a lot. That's a lot. And November and December, we have holidays in between, and so they tend to be difficult months to get all the work that we need to get done, and we do end up moving around or canceling some of the committee meetings because no one wants to come in and meet on Christmas Eve or the night before Thanksgiving. And so there's a lot of adjusting that happens in November and December, but if we can accomplish the update of the goals and then move into the capital planning process, then we'll be on track to then move into the budgeting process once that's complete.
Great. And as I do every episode, I'll say go to keenanh.gov/jobs. There's lots of job openings there. Also, if you're a municipal airport director, go ahead and apply there.
Or just have the right skill set. Right. Apply.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to talk about today?
I think that's it for today.
All right. In that case, we will wrap up and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening to City of Keene in Focus. We'll see you next time.